Good afternoon. We are now on Wednesday, the 15th of December 2021. The first video I'm going to record today is for children. I bought this book from the church in who I support. I support the Aid to the Church in Need, ACN International. And this is a beautiful book. I bought it for my grandson Jude, and before I give him it for Christmas with other things that have already been posted, I'm going to share it because it's beautiful. So in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Amen. Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom his love commits me here, ever this day be at my side, to light and guard, to rule and guide. Amen. Holy Michael, Archangel, defend me in this day of battle. Be my safeguard against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, I humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust down to hell Satan and all the wicked evil spirits who wander through the world for the ruin of souls. Amen. I'm not going to name all my grandchildren in this, but for the one who it's intended for, Jude, God bless you this Christmas. I hope you're going to get many hours of beautiful thoughts from this book. From the books of the Old Testament, the beginning. God creates the world. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. The earth was waste and empty. God's Spirit hovered over the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good. God separated the light from the darkness. He said to the light, "You are day." To the darkness, he said, "You are night." It was the first day. God said, "Let clouds gather up above. Let rain from them fall on the earth." God said to the skies above, "You are heaven." It was the second day. God said, "Let the waters gather together, so that dry land appears." God said to the dry land, "You are earth." To the waters gathered below, he said, "You are sea." And God saw that earth and sea were good. God said, "Let the earth bring forth all kinds of plants and trees." The plants sprouted up and grew green. God saw that it was good. It was the third day. God said, "Let there be lights in the heavens, the sun during the day, the moon and the stars at night. Let them show the times day and night, week and month, and the seasons." God saw that it was good. It was the fourth day. God said, "Let fish swim in the water. Let birds fly over the earth. Let all kinds of animals, great and small, live on the land." And so it happened. God saw that it was good. It was the 5th day. God said, "Let us make man in our own image and likeness. I will entrust the earth to him, all the fishes, birds, animals, and plants." God created man in his own image. As male and female, he created them. He blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply. I entrust the earth to you. You are more than the fish, the birds, the animals, and the plants. You are to care for them. The plants are to serve as food for you and the animals." God saw everything that he had made. It was very good. It was the 6th day. God created the universe in 6 days. Heaven, earth, sea, and all living things. On the 7th day, God rested. So the 7th day is a blessed and holy day for man. You read that in Genesis 1. Number 2. God grants man paradise. God formed the first man, Adam, out of earth from the field and breathed into him his breath of life. Thus man became a living being, and I'll show you the picture. Then God planted a garden in Eden. He caused many kinds of trees to grow. It was good to see them, and their fruit was delicious. In the middle of the garden grew the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God brought the man he had made into the garden so that Adam might cultivate and look after it. He said to the man, "You may eat the fruit of all the trees in the garden. It is only the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil that you may not eat. If you eat its fruit, you will have to die." God did not want the man to remain alone, so God brought all the animals and birds to Adam, and he gave them their names. However, he did not find one that was really suited to him. So God made the man fall into a deep sleep. He took one of Adam's ribs and formed it into a woman. When Adam saw her, he said, "She is as I am. Let her name be woman, because she was taken from me." The man and the woman were naked, but they felt no shame in front of each other. You can read that in Genesis 2. Number 3. Man loses paradise. The man and the woman lived in the garden that God had entrusted to them. There was enough to eat. They lived in peace with the animals. They were happy since God was their friend. Everything was good. I'm going to show you the picture now. But then The serpent said to the woman, "Did God really forbid you to eat from any of the trees in the garden?" The woman replied, "Not at all. We may eat the fruit of all the trees in the garden, except for the one in the middle of the garden. We may not eat its fruit, otherwise we shall die." "But no," said the serpent, "you will not die. On the contrary, your eyes will be opened. You will know what is good and what is evil, just like God." The woman saw that the fruit of the tree was delicious to eat and could make them wise. She took and ate, and she gave some to her husband to eat. Then their eyes were open. They realized that they were naked, so they sewed loincloths out of fig leaves. In the evening they heard God's footsteps in the garden. They hid themselves, but God called out to the man, "Where are you?" Adam answered, "I heard your footsteps. I was afraid. I hid myself because I am naked." God asked, "How do you know that? Have you eaten of the tree from which I have forbidden you to eat?" Adam passed the blame on to the woman. "She gave me the fruit to eat, and the woman blamed the serpent. It tempted me." God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, you are accursed. You shall crawl on your belly and eat dust. The woman will be your enemy. Her children will be the enemy of your children. They will crush your head, and you will bite their heel." God said to the woman, "It will be hard for you. You will bear your children in pain." God said to the man, "You have broken my commandment. You will see that the earth is not paradise. You will have to work hard until you die, so that you and your family do not go hungry. Then you will return to the earth from which I formed you." Adam called his wife Eve, which means life. She became the mother of all those who live. The Lord God expelled the man and the woman from paradise. His guard with a sword of flame kept watch over the entrance and over the path to the tree of life. You can read that in Genesis 3. Number 4, I'll show you a picture. Cain and Abel. Adam and Eve had 2 sons, Cain and Abel. Abel became a shepherd. Cain tilled the soil. In Cain's field there was a lot of corn. He brought some of it as a thanksgiving offering to God. Abel offered one of his best lambs. God was pleased with Abel's offering. He did not look with favour on Cain's offering. This made Cain angry and bitter. God warned him, "Why are you angry? Why are you staring in front of you? If you are planning good, you can look everybody in the eye. If you are planning evil, then sin is lying in wait for you. It wants to devour you, but you can master it. Cain said to his brother, "Come out with me into the field." When they were out in the field, Cain killed his brother. God asked Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" Cain replied, "I do not know. I'm my brother's guardian." Then God said to him, "What have you done? Your brother's blood has flowed into the earth. You cannot remain a tiller of the soil, because the earth will no longer bear fruit for you. You have lost your homeland. From now on you must wander from place to place without rest." Cain complained, "My punishment is too great. You're driving me from the soil and out of your presence. You're making me a homeless wanderer. Anyone can kill me." So God put a mark on Cain's forehead to protect him. You can read that in Genesis 4, 1 to 15. Number 5. Noah and the great flood. God saw that the men he had created in his image were growing more and more evil in their thoughts and deeds. The earth was full of violence, so God regretted having made man. He said, "I will wipe the men I have created from the face of the earth, the men, the animals, and everything living on earth." Noah had remained faithful to God, so God wanted to save him from the coming judgment. God said to Noah, "Make an ark out of wood that can float on water like a big ship. Then I will send a mighty flood over the earth. All living things will perish in the water. Only you and those with you in the ark will be saved." Noah began to build an ark with his sons, just as God had said. They built many rooms in the ship, because God had told them to take one pair of every kind of animal with them. When the ark was ready, Noah gathered supplies. Then he boarded the ark with his sons. Excuse me a moment, my nose tickles again. Tickles. Then he boarded the ark with his sons and their families. They took one pair of each kind of animal with them. God himself closed the door behind them. Then it began to rain. Water poured down from heaven and flooded the earth. It rose higher and higher and higher. The animals drowned, and the men also. The birds found no tree to perch on. Thus all living things on earth drowned. Only Noah and those with him in the ark survived the flood. Finally, after 40 days long, the rain stopped when the water began to go down. Noah first let out a raven It soon returned to him. Then a week later, he released a dove. It also returned. Finally, a second dove, which Noah let fly a week later, brought an olive branch back to the ark in its beak. Soon after, God said to Noah, "Now you can come out, you and all who were saved with you." They came out of the ark, the men and the animals. A new life began for all of them. Noah thanked God and offered him a sacrifice. God spoke to Noah, "I will establish my covenant for you, for the men and the animals. You and your children can live under this covenant. I also promise that I will never again send a flood to destroy life on earth. The rainbow shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth." Genesis 6-9. We're now going to go on to the Patriarchs, number 6, where God calls Abraham. I'm going to show you a picture. It shows the Noah and the ark and the rainbow, and it shows Abraham and the sheep. The Patriarchs, number 6. God calls Abraham. Abraham was a shepherd. God spoke to him, "Go, leave your homeland, your relatives, and your father's house. Enter the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make your name famous. In you all men will see what it means to be blessed. I will wish well to all those who wish you well. I will curse all those who wish you evil. All men will be blessed through you." Abraham set out as God had bidden him. He was my age. He was 75 years old. He took with him his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, all the animals that belonged to him, and all those who worked for him. Abraham entered the land that God had promised him and his children. It was a good and fruitful land, the land of Canaan. There Abraham built altars for God. You can read that in Genesis 12, 1-8. Number 7. God's promise to Abraham. One night, God spoke with Abraham. He said, "Do not be afraid. I will protect you and make you rich." Abraham replied, "How can riches mean anything to me, as long as you deny me what is most important? I have no son to be my heir and pass on my name." So God led Abraham outside the tent. "Look up to heaven, see the stars. That is how many sons and daughters you will have." Abraham trusted God, and God recognized Abraham's faith. Abraham had pitched his tent near the oaks of Mamre. About noon, he sat in the entrance of the tent. There he saw 3 men coming towards him. Abraham stood up and ran to meet them. Do not pass me by, come and rest. Abraham gave the strangers butter and milk, meat and bread to eat. After the meal, one of the guests asked Abram, "Where is your wife Sarah?" "She is in the tent," replied Abraham. The stranger said, "Next year about this time I will come again, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah stood behind Abraham in the tent. She heard what the stranger said. She laughed and thought to herself, "The stranger probably does not know how old I am. Abraham is also an old man." But the stranger asked, "Is anything impossible for God?" You can read that in Genesis 15, 1-6, 18, 1-14. Number 8, Abraham's faith. God kept his promise. Sarah, an old woman, became a mother. Abraham, an old man, became a father and acquired an heir. Sarah and Abraham gave their son the name that God himself had chosen for him, Isaac, which means, "May God smile." Isaac grew up into boyhood. I'll show you a picture of him and his father. That's him and his dad. God wanted to test Abraham. He said to him, "Take your son, your only son, whom you love, and offer him to me as a burnt sacrifice." The next morning Abraham fetched his donkey and loaded it with wood. Then he called his servants and his son. They travelled for 3 days until they reached a mountain. There Abraham left his servants and the donkey. "Stay here," he told them. "Isaac will go up with me up the mountain. We will return when we have prayed and offered sacrifice." Isaac carried the wood. Abraham carried the knife and the pot with the glowing coals. "Father," said Isaac, "we have wood and fire, but no lamb to sacrifice." Abraham replied, "God will provide that on the mountain." Abraham built a stone altar and arranged the wood. Then he bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar. He took the knife. At that moment he heard the voice, "Abraham, do not harm the boy. You have shown that you are ready to obey me and trust in me. You were prepared to offer me your only son, Isaac." When Abraham looked around, he saw a ram which had become entangled in a thicket. He placed the animal on the altar and offered God the burnt offering. Then he came back down the mountain with Isaac. You can read that in Genesis 21, 1-8 and 22. Number 9, Isaac, Esau and Jacob. Isaac inherited Abraham's herds, his servants and his maids. He also inherited God's blessing, since his wife Rebekah was barren. Isaac prayed to God. God heard his prayer. Rebekah became a mother. She gave birth to 2 sons. They were twins, but from the moment of their birth, they were completely different. The firstborn had hair on his arms and legs. His parents called him Esau. The other son had a smooth skin. They called him Jacob. Esau grew up to be a hunter. Jacob was quiet and remained close to the tents, working as a shepherd and a farmer. Isaac preferred Esau, for he liked to eat wild game, but Rebekah preferred Jacob. Once Jacob had just cooked some lentil soup as Esau returned home exhausted from the hunt. "Give me some of that red soup," he said. Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." Esau replied, "Here I am starving. What use is this right to me?" He took an oath and sold Jacob his birthright. Only then did Jacob give him bread and lentil soup. Isaac grew old. He could no longer see, couldn't see well. One day he said to Esau, "Go out and hunt, bring me wild game to eat, then I will give you God's blessing." Rebekah heard what Isaac said. She wanted to secure the blessing for Jacob. So she said to him, "Fetch 2 small kids." She roasted the goat meat. Then she covered his arms and legs with the goat skins and sent him to Isaac. Isaac heard the footsteps. He asked, "Who are you?" "I am Esau," said Jacob. "I brought you the roast meat. Eat first, and then give me the blessing you promised." Isaac reached out for his son's arm. He felt the goat skin, and it received him. He blessed Jacob. "God give you everything that you need on earth. Blessed be he who blesses you." Soon after, Esau returned from the hunt. He brought his father roast meat and asked him for the blessing. Then Isaac realized that his son Jacob had tricked him, but he could not take back the blessing he had passed on to him. Esau grew angry. He said, "When our father Isaac dies, I will kill Jacob." Rebekah heard this. She said to Jacob, "Flee to your uncle Laban in Haran. You can wait there until Esau has forgotten his anger." Thus Jacob came to Laban. He worked as a shepherd for Laban, but he also tended his own flock. He married and had children. After 20 years, Jacob returned to Canaan with his whole family. Along the way, he rested one night next to the river Jabbok. He had sent all his belongings across to the other bank. I'll just show you the picture. He was receiving the blessing from his father across to the other bank and had remained alone. That night someone wrestled with Jacob until daybreak. After the fight, he blessed Jacob and said, "From now on you will no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, which means a fighter of God, for you have fought against God and men and have prevailed." Jacob made peace with his brother Esau. He lived in the land of Canaan and had 12 sons. These are their names: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. They were ancestors of the people of Israel. You can read that story in Genesis 25 to 35. Number 10. Joseph comes to Egypt. Jacob loved Joseph, he was the youngest, more than his other sons. He gave him a beautiful coat. The others became jealous. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to his brothers, who were out on the pastures. They grabbed him and threw him into an empty well. At first, they wanted to kill their brother, but then they sold him to foreign merchants for 20 pieces of silver. The brothers tore up Joseph's coat and sprinkled it with lamb's blood. Then they sent it to Jacob via a messenger. Jacob recognized the coat at once. He thought that a wild animal had killed Joseph. For a long time, Jacob mourned his favorite son. Joseph came to Egypt with the merchants. There they sold him to the officer Potiphar. Joseph worked for Potiphar, and all that he did turned out well, for God was with him. Potiphar put Joseph in charge of his household. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph. Since Joseph refused, she lied about him to her husband. Thereupon Potiphar had Joseph thrown into prison. At that time, the Pharaoh's baker and his chief cupbearer were also in prison. They each had a dream. They described them to Joseph, and he was able to tell them what their dreams meant. The cupbearer would be released and would return to his work. The baker would be condemned and executed. Everything happened as Joseph had said. You can read that in Genesis 37, 39 to 40. Number 11. Jacob and his sons came to Egypt. 2 years later, the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, had a dream. He questioned all the wise men and dream interpreters in his land, but none of them was able to interpret his dream. Then the cupbearer remembered Joseph. He said to Pharaoh, "There is a young man in prison, an Israelite. He was able to interpret my dream and also the baker's. What he told us happened." The Pharaoh summoned Joseph. He described his dream. 7 healthy, fat cows came up out of the Nile. They are followed by 7 lean and bony ones who devour them. Again, 7 full ripe ears of corn are growing on a single stalk. Then 7 empty withered ones come, and thrust them aside. Joseph explained to the Pharaoh, "During the night, God has shown you what is to come. 7 good years in which the cattle grow fat and the corn in the fields yields abundantly. They will be followed by 7 bad years in which no rain falls. The animals will die of thirst. The corn will wither. I can give you this advice. Build warehouses and purchase the surplus in the good years. Build up a reserve for the years of famine." The Pharaoh trusted Joseph. He made him his administrator. After 7 good harvests came the time when no rain fell, and the cattle died of thirst, and the crops withered. Then Joseph opened the warehouses. Hungry people came from far away to buy grain. Jacob and his sons also had nothing more to eat, so Jacob sent his sons to Egypt. Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them immediately, but they did not recognize him. Joseph put his brothers to the test. He wanted to find out if they would stand up for one another. He ordered his silver cup to be replaced in Benjamin's sack. As the brothers were on their way home, Joseph sent his steward after them. He halted them and accused them. "Why have you repaid good with evil? Why have you stolen my master's silver cup?" The brothers defended themselves. There's a picture. "We have stolen nothing." But when Benjamin's sack was searched, the cup was found. The brothers returned to Joseph. He said, "You others can go. Only the one on whose person the cup was found must stay." Judah answered him, "Our father loves his younger son. He would die of grief if anything were to happen to him. Let me stay in Benjamin's place." Joseph could no longer contain himself. "I am Joseph, your brother," he said. "You sold me. You intended evil, but God has returned it to good. He allowed me to come to Egypt so that I could save you. Return quickly to our father and come with him to Egypt. Here you will suffer no want." Jacob rejoiced deeply when he heard that Joseph was alive. He and his sons and their families moved to Egypt. There they lived in the land of Goshen as shepherds. As long as the famine lasted, Joseph looked after his brothers. Genesis 41 to 47. I think that's long enough for you children to listen, so we'll stop there, and the next chapter we'll be reading from 12. God saves Moses. Moses leads the people through the desert. So I think 43 minutes is probably a bit too long for you, but had to be done as one. God bless you all. I'm sending you the peace of Jesus Christ. I hope you're going to have a wonderful Christmas. Lots of presents and singing and going to church and joyful times. And I hope you've got a crib and a Christmas tree being put up with lots of presents. God bless you all, and thank you for listening, if you still are.